Let's do this.
Untranslatable podcast. Mask on because we're trying to stay safe in this quarantine, but usually mask off. Here we go. All right. Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable podcast. We are here recording episode 192, and today we are going to be talking about tight and loose cultures, what it means to be a tight and a loose culture, and we're going to be talking about a very prominent researcher in the field who's kind of coined that term, has been on numerous different talk shows and stuff. So stay tuned today if you're curious about which countries or cultures are considered tight or loose. And this could apply to you if you're thinking about traveling somewhere, how you may want to present yourself and act, or if you're planning on moving to a new country at some point as well. This could be some useful information for you. So stay tuned for today's episode about tight and loose cultures. And my man bringing us all the hot takes and the good info, my buddy Jared. What's going on, Jared?
Oh, hello there. Not much is going on here, Chad. I noticed that there's another room in my house that I had no idea about. Did you know that? No, that's not true. That's just a room in my brain that I discovered since we're on day something of the quarantine. There is an attic here that we've kind of just agreed that we're not going to go in. It's creepy.
Is it haunted?
There.
Yep, definitely haunted. For sure.
We don't need to give the ghost any reason to escape by opening the door. But, give me a couple more weeks. Maybe I'll let you guys know what's up there. Maybe I'll start doing my podcast from up there.
There we go.
All of a sudden, I just get a much longer beard. I never come out.
You become the
Bring my food
attic
up,
hermit.
please.
Is there a window up there? Can you roll it down so you can just have a bucket?
There is actually one tiny window at the front of the house. But that's my screaming window. I use that to scream at passersby.
I almost just spit out my water on my laptop. Thanks, Jared.
Please, everyone,
Spread a little love.
Follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. You can see me screaming at passersby, neighbors, and such. You can also follow us on Twitter.
Spread a little love.
I complain about said passersby. Untranslatable 1, the number 1. You can also please give us 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. It would be greatly appreciated. We love to see it. We're humble people, but we like to receive praise like everyone else. I don't know anyone in Japan. I don't know anyone in Russia. I don't know anyone in Cambodia. Someone's listening to the podcast there, and I want to hear about it.
We thank you. That's for sure.
Chad, do you follow Untranslatable 1 on Twitter?
I do, although I'm not a big Twitter user, but I do.
That's a good disclaimer because I wanted to ask you if you saw something Sorry, I don't know why I should not have chips next to me when I do this.
You shouldn't while you're recording a podcast. Chomp, chomp, chomp.
In middle of talk, I just reached for it, threw it in my mouth. I was like, why would I do that?
That's the danger of chips, my dude.
So, all right, I'm not going to eat them. I retweeted something I saw, and it seemed very apropos to our topic today.
Ooh,
how do you consider? So we're going to be talking about this concept of loose and tight cultures. Mm-hmm. Where would you place New York on that scale? Mm-hmm. Loose versus tight.
I would say, generally speaking, probably loose. Would be my guess.
I think I feel like I'd agree with you too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot, people live on top of each other. It's sort of like they're like a very stick together when shit gets real kind of community, but also, sort of a get out of here community as well. Anyway, I noticed, and I saw this on the New York Post, which is top-notch journalism, and they say that social distancing complaints have surged in New York after de Blasio's call for tips. Now, that does not sound like a loose... hey, hello? What are you looking at?
I'm listening. I'm looking at our Twitter. Okay. I'm listening.
Well, actually, see, now you're going to put me on the spot, and I'm nervous, because the article I retweeted was from the Wall Street Journal. But actually, not to brag, but I read other articles from the Wall Street Journal also. Then I ran out of my free access to the Wall Street Journal. But I'm glad I found this one in the New York Post because this is what they say. New York City's rat population just got a lot bigger.
That's funny. Snitches get stitches, Jared. That's what they say.
Calls. That's what Chad says all the time to me. And it's scary.
That's right.
Calls and text about social distancing.
Snitching on me, Jared.
I haven't said anything, Chad. Okay,
Don't be snitching.
I haven't said it. Anyway, back to what we were doing. I wanted that to sound like I just did like a hard cut edit or something. So I haven't said anything about. So calls and text about social distancing violations skyrocketed following Mayor Bill de Blasio's appeal on Saturday for New Yorkers to help stem the spread of the coronavirus by snitching on illegal gatherings. Data show. Before the announcement, the number of daily complaints about improper social distancing ranged from a low 262 to a high of 963. But on Sunday, the day after de Blasio rolled out his new Squeal initiative, is that what he called it? A new Squeal initiative?
That's not a great name for it. That's for sure. Or it is a really great name. It's one or the other.
I mean, I guess so. Who would? Oh, anyway, the figure surged to 1,305, which comprised more than 25% of 311's total 5,123 calls for the day. Data show. The only day that 311 got more overall complaints during the period, which began March 29th, was on April 14th when there were 5,190, but only about 17% involved social distancing. Chad? What do you think?
You know, this is a tricky one because I think we all should be doing as much as we can to stay home when possible, flatten the curve and everything. At the same time, though, too, it's tricky, man. Like, I don't know if I would be one of those people to snitch on somebody, but at the same time, it's like I've definitely seen pictures of people out and about where it's like, are y'all stupid? Like, why? Especially like the protesters in Michigan. Like, what are you doing? It's tough though, man. I mean, what do you do? What's the quote, Jared? Isn't there a quote? It's like you either you're a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. Is that the quote? Something like that. You either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, right?
Or you just watch the whole world go so bad that you have no hope but to join at that point.
Right.
Do you want to hear about some of these gatherings? I think maybe.
Absolutely.
I think there might be some insights.
Because I've only left the house a few times in the last few weeks, Jared, to get food, and that's it. And
let me just say, I generally agree with you as far as what you just said. Like you can't like you see people outside sometimes. You're like, what are you doing? Or what do you like? You think this is a joke? Some of them do actually. Some of them think it's a hoax. Some of them think it's a joke. Some of them are concerned about the well-being of other people and all that stuff.
Right.
But it is tough when you're asking your citizens to be snitches. And also, I don't like the idea of a leader calling on their people to snitch on each other. It just seems like a bad road to go down.
Plus, like, how does that even work? Okay, so say I snitch on Jared. What if Jared didn't do anything? What if you didn't do anything? I snitch on you. Like, I just don't know how this whole system's going to work.
I'm coming for you.
Right.
Then I'm coming for you.
That's right. It's because stitches get stitches, Jared. But
all told, the city has fielded 15,199 social distancing complaints between March 29th and April 19th. So, like 3 weeks, around that.
Can I just say, Jared, for some reason, I do not like the term social distancing.
Yeah.
I think there's some implications to, language is important, Jared. We're a language podcast here. And although we normally butcher foreign languages when we try to do our Untranslatables, but still, and stay tuned for those people. But
you betcha.
I think that the term social distancing implies that
you just
if you're
sort of
close
move
to
out
somebody,
of the way
it's social or something. I don't see why we don't call it physical distancing, because that's what we're trying to do. It's a space thing. It's not a social thing. I can still be social and interact with you.
Sure.
I just can't be within a certain proximity.
And see, that's also the struggle with a place like New York, is where you can't walk down the street without seeing someone. Like we both have the benefit. Even me, who lives in a slightly more populated place than you. Even I have, for the most part, have the ability to walk around and cross the street when necessary and avoid people.
Well,
in New York,
tell you
don't really have that. But
I can tell you, Jared, while I was still living in China, it was social distancing is difficult. You get on a train. How are you in social distance? Beijing. Yeah, it's really tough. Yeah.
When you were there, what are you gonna do? Except they also had a much better system for deliveries and all that stuff, I would say.
Yes.
'Cause I feel like our delivery system right now seems like it's falling to pieces.
It seems like a lot of things are falling apart here. I've heard a lot about stuff with, unemployment being overwhelmed, all sorts of issues, and I don't think any place is perfect. I think a lot of places have handled this fairly well, some less than others. It's just interesting though, because I think China can get away with doing a lot of things that would never happen in the U.S. because Americans just aren't going to do it. The fact that we have protests right now against social distancing, I guarantee you, if that kind of thing, I just don't think that kind of thing would happen in China. I really don't. But yeah.
Where do you think the largest number of... I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. Where do you think the largest number of complaints were coming from regarding social distancing in New York City?
Well, where is it most populated? Or where is it most densely populated? I'm not sure.
Imagine a common place that one would think to... I'm not going to make you guess all of them, but this one... It's not. No. It's not a borough. It's like a location within a borough. But imagine a place that a lot of people would want to go if they thought they could. People want to exercise. People want to get out.
Oh,
where
Central
do people
Park.
Go?
Central
Park.
There you go. Yeah.
Parada. The most complaints came from Central Park. The second largest number came from Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters, which and a Chabad. I believe that's it's like a Jewish headquarters of some sort. A Chabad spokesperson said the complaints were coming from within its Hasidic Jewish community, where many people are deeply frustrated and even more angry with this tiny group of violators who are disobeying the law and the unequivocal warnings by the rabbinic and medical communities. So is it just like... Oh, that's weird. I don't know what that is. But yeah, I don't like the... Anyway... Oh, what I also wanted to say, cops have made 19 arrests, issued 143 summonses, and handed out 221 fines in connection with alleged violations of social distancing rules from March 17th through Monday. March 17th through Monday, which is like a week ago. That kind of seems counterintuitive too, I mean, maybe not the summonses, I guess, or the fine. Well, I know. Even so, you have to give it to them,
right?
That's not socially distant. I don't know. But I guess, but then people would say, but you have to do something if you're trying to quote unquote enforce it. But it's like, I don't know. Right.
It's tricky. It's hard to say.
This is why I don't lead things, but arrests seem totally pointless. What are you arresting people for?
Yeah.
I have heard of like like secret underground parties and stuff going on too. Have you heard about that?
That doesn't surprise me though.
People need to get their party on, See, do you have any?
I have this weird kind of, maybe weird's the wrong word, Jared, but the way I've been thinking about things lately is whatever that I want to do worth dying for if I were to get this virus, right? So that's why, trust me, when I came back here, the first thing I wanted to do, first thing that was on my list was go to Elderly Instruments, which is a guitar shop in Lansing, Michigan. Amazing guitar shop, beautiful. And never made it there, right? Obviously now they're closed for the time being because they're not essential business. But my whole point of this is I love guitar more than just about anything in the world. And I wouldn't have even done that if it would have been worth the risk. I didn't go even before all this stuff happened. And I think people need to reconsider, is it really worth partying one time right now? Is that worth risking your life? If it is, then I guess by all means make your own choices. But I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I mean, I guess I'm definitely with you on that. But let's move on from this. We could talk about this all day.
True.
And obviously, it's one of the most pressing things out there. But let's spread a little love around.
Let's do it. A little love. Let's do it. I got 2 shout outs for us today, Jared.
Okay.
One is a country and one is a celebrity.
Me. I don't know why I always do that. Okay.
Yes, it's you, Jared. My shout out. Jared is become a new country, the country of Jart. Population 1, maybe 2. I don't know if you'll allow your lady friend to be a part of your country. Anyways,
you have to apply for citizenship.
It's a pretty lengthy application process. Anyways, so Sweden has actually exited their goal of being coal-free 2 years early. So the Nordic nation is the 3rd European country to have waved goodbye to coal power. To coal for power generation. So Sweden has joined Europe's scramble to decommission coal. Power utility Stockholm Exergi has announced the permanent closure of coal-fired cogeneration plants in Hjorthagen, eastern Stockholm. So their initial goal, Jared, was to rid the country of coal by 2022, but they have decommissioned all of the facilities 2 years early. So I think this is just awesome. Shout out to you, Sweden. That's really great. Sweden's also kind of interesting because they've had a very different response to the coronavirus approach.
Yeah. Do you know about that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
can you explain it to me a little bit?
Sure. So this is what I know right now, as of right now, and we're going to break the fourth wall. And this is what I know as of.
I mean, listen, this stuff changes so quickly. This could come out tomorrow, and they'd be like, "What is he talking
about?" Very true. As of February 23rd, Sweden has actually not put their country into lockdown like other countries have. So they are, I believe, trying to enforce social distancing as much as possible, but. At the same time, it seems like at least they do have more deaths right now than the bordering countries of theirs that have enacted lockdowns. Like, Jared, if you could just do me a favor and look up, sorry, I know you were about to take a sip of your brew. If you could just do me a favor and look up the differences of deaths between Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, also Finland. There's probably a graph that will show you everything. But Sweden's deaths have been higher right now. But what this could mean, though, theoretically, at least what I think Sweden is, obviously I'm no medical or government professional here, but what I think Sweden's goal is to reach herd immunity sooner, which would then, if there is a second wave, which I think most likely there will be, according to what a lot of the medical professionals are saying, the second wave in Sweden would be a lot less damaging.
That's their thought process.
That's their thought process, yes.
Huh. I guess we'll see.
Yep. It's an interesting experiment. It's too
I've
bad
learned
that
a little bit. I've learned a little bit about previous. Well, I guess I've learned a little bit about previous pandemics, but But I've been learning about
probably 1918 Spanish flu. Yep.
H1N1, and then the H2N2, which was what they called "quote unquote" Asian flu in like the late 1950s.
Avian flu, or was it called Asian?
That's what they called it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But it was, I don't know. And and they don't really, and I don't really hear much talk about like herd immunity, but it's also a flu, so I don't know.
Right.
And I'm not a doctor. Right. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like Dr. Phil to know anything.
Right. Anyways, my next shout out, Jared. So anyways, thank you, Sweden, though, for the 2 years early on coal. That's awesson. Yeah, we'll see what happens with their coronavirus implementations. All right, my last shout out for today goes out to an artist that I think is near and dear to both of our hearts, or maybe I'm speaking for myself. I don't know. But M&M has donated cups of mom spaghetti to numerous Detroit hospitals.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to find out. Yeah. I believe so. M&M donated spaghetti cups to DMC hospital healthcare workers in Detroit.
No, it's not
M&M
a real thing.
has not released a public statement about the donation. Social media has been flooded with healthcare workers' appreciation for the tomatoey goodness they've received, with one worker posting a delicious-looking picture of mom spaghetti. I'm not sure, if it's a restaurant or what. I don't see any other information. I think it was...
He probably got it from somewhere, but... Oh, by the way, it is. When I said it's not a real thing, what he's doing is a real thing. But Mom's Spaghetti is not like some brand that M&M has
Although it should be.
Spaghetti
it should be. That'd be a great business idea.
Yeah, but that doesn't really seem like it fits with his brand to be slinging sauce.
Though. Yes, it does, though, Jared. The whole point of the Mom Spaghetti, you get the joke, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Palm Sweaty Mom Spaghetti. I understand where the name comes from. I just don't see as part of his brand as him like going onto his Instagram or whatever and putting up like, hey, buy my cans or my jars of Mom Spaghetti sauce or something.
Right. Have you seen that YouTube video where they edited Mom Spaghetti into Lose Yourself? As in, like, sure every opportunity for Mom Spaghetti, it is hilarious.
I'm sure I have.
It's hilarious. But,
I mean, hilarious is such a weird word to use for something like that. It's
stupid, but it's funny. It'll make you laugh, Jared. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
But anyway, shout out to M&M by the way, for donating food to the heroes, our health workers on the front lines right now.
There's a Instagram post from the Henry Ford Health System. That's the healthcare system here in Michigan, and they grammed out our hashtag healthcare heroes, quote unquote, lost themselves in the delicious mom spaghetti donated by Detroit's very own M&M. Thanks for providing a special meal for our team members.
Right. Nice. Well, Jared, I think you know
Chad
what
loves
time
a good
it
pun.
is.
I do know what time it is, but I had to give you that pun because I know you appreciate a solid pun. But this, which we recently got a second ago got interrupted by the very origin of this, is the untranslatable owl, signifying time for some untranslatables.
Let me get us started today, Jared, and I have a Norwegian one for you, and it is Hva fien, which means what's in the way. What's in the way, Jared? Jared, tell me what's in the way, man.
Is it like what's really wrong? It's like, come on. Oh yeah?
Sorry, people, he got me mid-sip, but yes, you are correct.
I did. But I love that. It's you imagine someone that is mad at you and you don't even take it personally because it's like, come on, what's this really about?
Right. What's in the way? Come on, what's in the way? Right.
Or what is that from?
What is this?
From,
what is this?
What's that movie with? Good Will Hunting, where he keeps saying it's not your fault.
Right.
He really could just be saying what's in the way.
That's
what's
true.
in the way, and it would have the same effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's my turn.
My
first
turn.
untranslatable is French Canadian. It's all about the French Canadians, and it's avoir de la mine dans le crayon,
which means
to have lead in one's pencil.
Is that like to be smart, to be sharp?
It is to be sharp, but not to be smart. So imagine, we're all quarantined up. A lot of people are single. And I would say a lot of these people that are single have a lot of lead in their pencil right now, not being able to go outside, experience human interactions, causing them to have a lot of lead in their pencil. Ooh, man, I just need to get out there and experience the world.
So
and by the world, I mean another
cooped
person.
Up inside?
No, it's to be horny.
To get some loving? Oh, okay. Okay.
So you came to it. I'll give you a hammer.
That's what she said right there, Jared.
To have a lead on one's pencil,
that's
or
right.
To experience a full ham horn.
There we go.
As I call it in my house.
Well, Jared, I have an untranslatable, and then I have some bonus related untranslatables. So mine is Dutch
We're
for
not
you.
worthy.
And I'm going to say it for you. The way I'm going to say it is probably sounds more like German than Dutch because I don't speak Dutch. But I think you might be able to figure out what this means. Maybe. So
Okay.
here we go. Let's for an apple and an A kopen.
Something about an apple. Cuppin. In an
Kaufen.
A cuppin?
Kaufen.
Oh, okay. Buy. Let's
Buying
let's buy an
something-
apple.
Buying something for an apple and an egg.
Oh, as a cheap, got
There
it for
we
an apple
go.
and an
Good
egg.
work. Good work, Jared. Now, in English, we have kind of the opposite. We say when you spend a lot of money, we say it cost an arm and a leg.
That rhymes.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It does. I didn't mean to do that. In Spanish,
Wow.
you either pay, if something's expensive, you either pay a kidney, me costa un riñón, or an eye, me costa un hoja de la cara. So there you go, Jared. A couple extra untranslatables for you today.
And then in Scotland, it's a bean and a shepherd's pie. Fun fact. My
There we go.
untranslatable is Alagaupu, which is a Samoan language. And it's Alogo Tai Ua Logo Uta, which means when it is felt toward the sea, it is felt toward the land.
So it's like everything is connected.
Sure, sure. That's sure.
Okay.
Sorry, the only reason I said sure so many times is because I kept missing the hand word. Yeah, when something happens in our family, in your family, no matter how far away it is, you feel it. That's more of what it is.
It's true.
But yeah,
very true.
Because
Very
we're all
true.
connected.
That
when
is true.
when your heart breaks when you're in China or Czech Republic, I feel it. When you're not
You do,
wearing your
Jared.
laid back vibe shirt,
That's right.
I feel it.
Got it
And
today,
I feel
people.
it when you are
Brought
too.
it out of retirement. Whew.
Throwback.
That's right. Throwback to the good old Czech days.
People have been asking about it, and so you had to please everyone.
give the people what they want, Jared. That's what
That's
they
very
say.
nice of you.
And
You don't give me what I
depending
want, but the people.
depending
That's
on
really
if
who
you
matter.
live in a country with tight or loose culture, you may or may not be able to give or get what you want. That's for sure, Jared. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that today. What are tight and loose cultures? First of all, it was your idea. I think it was a great idea to cover this topic. How did you come across the idea, Jared?
Well, I heard someone. I heard I heard of the terms, and then I thought it was interesting, and I almost almost immediately after I recommended it to you, I realized it felt like a mistake because I was like, oh no, now I got to do homework. I thought this
Yep.
was more of a common thing, but this is something that a psychologist. Do you happen to know her
it's
name
more
off the top of your head?
psychology.
I do actually.
1 second. Let
her
me
name is
find it.
Michele Gelfand.
Thank you. Yes.
She coined. I didn't realize I had. Sorry, I didn't realize I had it right in front of me when I said that. She coined these terms, and she wrote papers and a book about it. And I thought it was more of a common thing because just when you hear the term, it seems like that's like it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I will say this,
the-
Jared.
Yeah.
When you sent me the text message a few days ago about the topic idea, I kind of knew what you were talking about before you right as you sent it, but it was
Sure.
interesting to look into it more, and just
it
to
made
see
sense
kind of the
to you, but you didn't
breakdown.
realize that it was just
It's a lot
it was
deeper than
some,
you think.
Some
Yeah.
psychologist that wrote a book about it, and not
Right.
Yeah, not like BuzzFeed articles about it.
Right,
It's like, oh,
right.
no, I actually got to read shit now. But I did find it interesting.
That's why I try to find graphs, Jared. Show me them pictures, baby.
No, pictures are good. I do like pictures.
And I found some good graphs, and it's really interesting to see. I think the biggest paper, or one of the most well-known papers by Michele Gelfand, is the paper she published about. It was a study on 33 different nations. And differences between tight and loose cultures. And a lot of this is, as Jared said, rooted in psychology, but also anthropology as well. Now, what I find interesting, though, too, is the fact that I think it's worth mentioning, Jared, that we are doing this research from, you always have to look at the researcher and the culture and country they come from as well. I'm pretty sure that she's American. And I think that also might influence the way you view tight or loose cultures based on what you perceive. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, no, that makes perfect sense, dude. It's like if you're coming from a super conservative country, you might look at a country that we as Americans find to be conservative, and some country that's way more conservative than that would be like, what are you talking about? Those guys are out. Those are a bunch of harlots and whores and alcoholics and drunkards over there. What do you you call that? Do you call that order? They're all going to hell or something, So there's definitely a spectrum of what's and it's all there's so many like different aspects in ways that people are looking from it, and also people inside of the country would be like, I don't agree with. People could easily disagree with it too.
The other interesting thing about tight and loose cultures, Jared, is a lot of it has to do with history. It has to do with kind of the makeup of the country, how the country came to power, who is in power. There's a lot of different factors that I think a lot of people view cultures as cultures this or cultures that, but I think culture is very dynamic. It changes a lot over time. A lot of times it changes out of necessity. I think that some countries become tighter or looser because of necessity. Either people need to be, or at least the government views that people need to be more controlled, or the people rise up and the government realizes it's in their best interest not to control the people or oppress the people. But it all really depends on the country. But let's talk about some countries, Jared. Can I hold on
before we do? Yeah. I want to talk about for sure. Let me just explain what tight and loose is from her words a little bit.
Yeah.
For the people. Her aim is to, and this is from various articles like the New York Times and stuff. Because they allow me in. Wall Street Journal, they allow me in. In Rule Breakers, that's the book that she wrote. The psychologist Michele Gelfand sides with the culturist. The culture is a stubborn mystery of our experience and one of the last uncharted frontiers. She writes. Her aim is to guide readers. Do you hear banging noise when I on your end? Oh, okay. Nope. I have this. I put my feet onto this. What do you call it? Kettlebell that's under my desk, and I sometimes like move it around and slam it on the ground.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
Well, I got a text from Sydney, and she's like, "What's that noise?" And I was like, "Oh no." So anyway, sorry. Her aim is to guide readers through the complex elements that make up a culture, but to draw attention to her aim isn't to guide readers through all the complex elements that make up a culture, but to draw attention to aspects she believes have been ignored, the social norms, or often informal rules of conduct, the do's and don'ts, the social tiskings or raised eyebrows. For example, maybe the comparing punctuality in Germany to punctuality in France, for example. I don't know. I just threw out a random example.
Right. True. Yeah.
According to Gelfand, cultures can be located among a continuum from tight to loose, and you said that. Depending on the strictness of these rules, tight cultures, she observes, have social norms and little tolerance for deviance, while loose cultures have weak social norms and are highly permissive. Think of the difference between a gathering for buttoned-up, middle-aged churchgoers and a party for 20-somethings in Bushwick. You know why I also thought about this? Is because I think that this is also changing in front of our very eyes with this whole virus thing. And how we're going to look at each other and how we conduct with each other socially 100%. After this is all over.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot more, protection around like people being up in each other's space, literally
Right.
and figuratively.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna think twice before inviting people over to my house because I used to invite people over and throw bangers of parties, but I don't know these people.
Right. Yeah, I think the interesting thing too about tightness and looseness is the idea of, it seems like a lot of the places where they seem to be a bit looser culturally. Also, I think it's funny they use the word loose. I would maybe use a different term. Because I don't think
doesn't
loose
really make any sense.
Yeah, loose.
It's not like they're just running through the streets naked
Right.
like it's Mardi Gras.
Right.
Although
I feel like
Mardi Gras
strict,
is that
I feel like
definition of loose.
strict and open would be better terms, personally.
Strict feels weird to me too, though.
Does it?
Strict.
Okay.
I think tight and loose I don't like. Strict, because strict seems weird too, because it's not like these people are, because it's not just about rules, It's about how like they
It's about
comport
culture.
themselves.
Yeah, it's about culture.
So maybe it's like I like open. I think open is good. Open
Right.
and closed maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different countries that, are on the spectrum of, I guess, tightness or looseness. And a few countries surprised me, actually, Jared. I think there are some countries, a few countries surprised me that are on the lower end of the tightness score, which means that they are a bit looser culturally, which I found interesting. I think a lot of Americans would consider our country to be at least people our age would consider our country to be very open. I would actually disagree with that. I think there are a lot of conservative pockets in the United States where there are some pretty strict societal and cultural
pockets
norms.
do you mean? Well, it's funny that you say pockets though, because
or
our president
states
is
or
conservative.
regions?
Our
He's not a traditional conservative.
That's not the point. Obviously, I mean, he's an idiot. But he's portraying himself as a conservative is essentially what I'm saying.
Right.
And pocket seems weird to me because I think our country is sort of is very related to our sort of morals are very related to religious morals, Christian morals. People have I think there's a large portion of our community, whether you're conservative or not, that has a very that's religious and
now,
has a
it's interesting you mentioned religion, Jared, because if you look at the list of countries on the tightness score, the ones that tend to be a bit tighter, not all, but a lot of them. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
A lot of them do have a fairly big religious following. Like I know,
I feel like that's going to be a huge factor. If any country that is nationally takes religion seriously, that's going to be a huge factor because that factors a lot into policy and stuff like that. But to be fair, it's not just religion that's putting countries on these lists.
Oh, definitely not.
Because not all of them. There's definitely a religious factor. If I just look through, I imagine we're looking at the same list. But it's not all religious factors in there.
No, it's definitely not.
I think that because we have this illusion of freedom here in the U.S., I think that gives us the idea that we're super loose, bro. I can't.
Right.
My fingers don't properly do that. Gives us but our government and our rules are still largely based off of partially very old religious and conservative based ideas and slavery.
Very, very true.
Also, slavery is also in there too. So a lot of it's based off of that too.
True.
And so I think the whole idea of I think it's an illusion. It's very much an illusion, at least for the U.S. Do you want to go through some of the other ones? What sort of stood out to you? It was obvious and then like, oh, no.
Well, a big one is also how open the media and free speech can be.
Sure.
I think that is a really big giveaway on which countries are a bit tighter or looser. Now, as we mentioned, though, too, with history has influenced a lot of these countries. And like Germany, for example, is fairly loose, I would say. I mean, on the spectrum, they're kind of in the middle. But the interesting thing about Germany is, in terms of freedom of press and stuff, I'm not sure. I could be wrong, and any of our German listeners out there, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be spreading fake news here. But I'm from what I remember in Germany, there are some laws. You don't have like complete freedom of speech and press like we do in the States, or at least the way it's written. And some of that is because of Germany's troubled past, where
let me say, I'll tell you. Before you keep going, I'll tell you. Mm-hmm. In modern Germany, the Grundgesetz guarantees freedom of press, speech, and opinion. Censorship is mainly exerted in the forms of restriction of access to certain media. Examples include motion pictures and video games to older or adolescents. So I think they'd say that it's press is free.
No, right, but in Germany, I'm pretty sure you can't go walking around saying like Nazi slogans and stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
You know, yeah. So I mean like that. Like in the States, unfortunately, as we have seen, people can
you do
that. In the States?
I guess so. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah,
I don't know why I'm so
country
shocked,
though, Jared. One country that really surprised me, though, and this one is, at least according to the study done by, what was her name again, Jared? Sorry?
Michele Gelfand.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes.
Is it Michelle?
Yes, I believe so. According to that study, this is from discovermagazine.com, in case people are curious, Ukraine is actually, according to that study, the loosest of all the countries with a tightness score of, I believe, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Which that one surprised me because when I think of, but I think a lot of this has to do with how open your culture is. And I think some cultures, like if we look at the bottom list, you have countries like South Korea, Singapore, India, Malaysia, and Pakistan. Also China. I'm not going to lie. I thought China and Japan would actually be higher up and be a bit tighter. I was surprised to see Norway, to be honest. I was very surprised.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the creature comforts that come along with that whole sort of idyllic utopia that a lot of liberal people in the U.S. might think about Norway does come with a lot of like a sort of taxing. I think that's that sort of takes away from the looseness score a little bit, probably.
Yep.
And I don't know much about their culture. Like, how close are they to like Germans as far as like punctuality and stuff like that?
Right. That's a good point. That's a very, very good point.
Because I could picture them being a punctual group.
Right.
And I think also I would say that they are I think they are, stereotypically speaking, this is all stereotypes I'm throwing out there. I think they'd kind of be considered sort of a quiet, soft-spoken culture.
Right.
Definitely would be a stereotype I would think about them if I were to think about the tightness and looseness.
Now what's
score,
interesting though is that like I said, history plays a big role in this tightness and looseness. Threats, as in like military threats, political threats, plays a role. Now, what's interesting though is Israel is, according to Gelfand, is quite an anomaly because if you look at Israel culturally, it's pretty culturally loose. But there's still there's a war going on in Israel. There's still a lot of conflicts in that area.
Right.
Now, a lot of people accredit the looseness of Israel to the fact that a lot of Israelis came from relatively loose cultures in Europe, especially Eastern Europe, which very well could be.
I have heard that that culturally Israel is very quote unquote loose. That's a weird way to put it. That makes it's just when you say it like that, but like that doesn't surprise me that they're there on the looseness scale because I have heard that it's more chill than one might think, given the constant threat of bombings and whatnot.
Right. Now, which country is the tightest, Jared, according to Gelfand?
Well, they say Pakistan is the tightest up there. Malaysia. Do you know much about Malaysia? What do you know about Malaysia?
Not really. Nope.
Were you supposed to go there?
No.
Okay, I don't know if that was on your list while you were living in China.
Nope.
India. Singapore. Singapore makes sense. I'm actually Singapore is that's fourth, but I'm kind of surprised it's not higher because I know that culturally it's a pretty sort of a strict culture. Then also I know law-wise and sort of punishment-wise, they're pretty strict as far as that goes. Then Norway, which is what you were talking about. Turkey, that's not really surprising.
Turkey.
It's a pretty religious
Japan,
country.
Not really surprising as well.
Yeah,
a little.
They're
I
very
guess,
but I mean they're pretty quote unquote free. I would say, I would imagine, but it is like a very respect based culture. It's a very similar to actually a lot of the places on the top list are very respect based cultures. I would say. I'm sure that that plays a lot into it, is how much you respect your elders and all that stuff.
Sure.
Like in the U.S., people have no respect for their elders, and that's probably why we're much lower.
Unfortunately, also true. Yeah. I'm surprised though that China didn't score higher. At least with my own personal experiences in China, I would think China would be like top 3 or 4.
And on this list, you'd imagine that on the list of all the countries they're naming here, they're the only one with like internet restrictions, government mandated internet restrictions.
Are you sure about that? I'm pretty sure a couple other countries on here
Which
do
ones?
as well.
Which ones?
Let me take a look.
Venezuela, maybe.
Maybe. Does Singapore not, or Malaysia, or Pakistan?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure what the internet laws are in those different countries, but yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the tightness and looseness also has to do with the culture's willingness to change. And I think a lot of these countries that you look at, I think they are a bit more traditional. It seems like the countries that are a bit more loose culturally embrace changing culture a little bit more, embrace other cultures as well a little bit more. Obviously, these are generalized statements here, but when I see some of these countries that are a bit looser, it seems like the cultural norms aren't as rigid as some of these countries that are a bit stricter.
You're right. I found out that, so at least in Singapore, websites like Playboy, which who's going to Playboy? Pornographic websites, Ashley Madison, those are blocked.
Banned? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. And then other stuff that has stuff that talks about drugs or piracy, I guess that makes sense, is blocked.
Now let me just share with you, Jared, a few countries that I guess didn't really surprise me. Netherlands being a fairly loose country culturally, I could totally see that. Jared and I have spent time in the Netherlands. I think that the Dutch people are definitely
very friendly, very open, very helpful.
I think the other thing,
they're very approachable.
Right. And I think the other thing too is that, like, when I look at some of these countries that are a bit tighter, I imagine there could be much more backlash if you do something against the cultural norm there than you would in the Netherlands, for example. Yes.
Punishments are, like, for example, Pakistan, Malaysia, Singapore. I'd imagine punishments are high for things that we might find not worth punishing at all, or not that big of a deal.
Exactly. Whereas, like in the Netherlands, a lot of the countries in the EU, it's funny though, because in the EU, I guess the Netherlands and Estonia, and also, is Ukraine in the EU? Might be a stupid question. But Netherlands, Hungary, and Estonia, if Ukraine's in the EU, the Netherlands, Hungary, Estonia, and Ukraine all are some of the loosest, and they definitely, I think, probably don't maybe have as rigid laws as other countries would.
So they're not fully apart, but economically, I think they have some sort of relation.
Interesting.
But I don't think they're, because I look at the map and they show the EU in green, and then they show Ukraine in orange.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I think they have some connection, but they're not fully apart. And another thing about these European countries and some of these other countries is, I would say also, just looking at some of the countries up on the top of the list: Netherlands, Brazil, Venezuela, Greece, Australia, U.S., Spain, Belgium. These countries, France, Germany, Italy, even these countries are also very free sexually. If you're going to look at that in comparison to the other side,
true, very true.
Of the lower tight part is that there's a lot less, and I think a lot of that comes with the religious aspect of it too. There's a lot less religious intervention.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Jared, because tight nations tend to be more religious, which means they reinforce more adherence to moral conventions and rules that facilitate social order. Also, a lot of the more tight countries do tend to have higher monitoring of criminal justice systems, more severe punishments like the death penalty, and greater control of crime as well. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when you travel or look at places where you live, because not that we're advocating that anybody break the law here, but there are definitely some countries where I would not even run the risk of doing anything that could be remotely perceived as illegal than in other countries.
But if you're also okay with not being a criminal, then I don't want to give the idea that tight country is like not a great place to be. It's just that if you don't want to be a criminal, Singapore could be a great place to live. I've heard it's gorgeous.
Right.
But it's just what culture suits you. Let me ask you this, Chad. How do you, Chad, if Chad was a country, which Chad is a country, if you, Chad
is
were
a country, fun fact.
If you, the human Chad, were a country, would you be a tight or a loose country?
Probably fairly loose, I would say. Just because you're not surprised by this, Jared. Probably because
I disagree.
Really? Why would I be a tight? Why would I be a tight country?
No. I want you to go first. I want you to go first. Please explain your.
I would be a loose country because I think I'm open to new ideas. I also don't think that if I were in control of crime and punishment and the law, I think there would be a lot of things I would not punish or have the punishments be like a fine or something, or community service instead of jail time or serious corporal punishment. Let's see here. If now I'm not a businessman, I'm not an economics major, I'm not a finance guy, but I would also try to have a lot of free trade and connections between other countries and other nations. So that would be my argument.
Chad for president.
That's right.
Then you make a good point. I was thinking about you're very serious about following. You're very afraid of the rules. You're a rule follower to a fault, in my opinion. It's annoying.
True. True. I do try to be a rule follower as much as possible. True.
Which is fine. I guess it's fine. That's good.
Right.
That's very good. People should follow the rules.
But see, I wouldn't have a ton of strict rules for people to follow.
Sure, you're following rules that you didn't put into place, but you're like, well, since they're in place, I'll follow them.
Right.
But I don't know if I'm not saying I like them. That's fair.
Right.
That's fair.
Right.
No, that's fair. I'm with you. But I think I'd be maybe a little, on the scale, I think I'd be closer to the loose side, but maybe a little higher than you. Something that much similar to Germany, I think I would, and this is all ideally speaking. I'm not saying I don't want this to be like a me versus you as far as, I'm not saying I'm more. That's
how I feel, Jared.
Because I'm about to say I like the punctuality thing. I very much relate to.
Right.
I'm not even great at it now. That's why I say this. I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm some amazingly punctual person, but I like the idea of that, and I really enjoyed, in a weird way. I enjoyed that sort of aspect of living to other countries I've been to where they're a lot looser about times. Right. It was very comforting just having that sort of schedule, even if it did sort of sometimes seem a little ridiculous to see everyone just sitting there 2 minutes before
Right.
But I get it, but I'm with you as far as rules go, where it's like, I don't think punishing people with lengthy or sentences or pain related sentences does any good.
Right.
And I don't think that shunning people out of society helps society on a whole. For maybe on some, maybe for certain offenses, maybe if there's a murderer, yeah, I'm okay with shunning that person from society. But there are a lot of offenses that are criminal that I don't find worth that I find over criminalized, I guess you could say,
or unjust punishment for sure. I also would say, Jared, that like you mentioned, tight and loose, this doesn't mean necessarily good or bad. This just means a country's or culture's abilities to either really value more traditional cultural and societal norms and not deviate or change from them, versus a loose country that doesn't have as kind of stuck in place or strict societal rules, and there's more openness to change, right? Like in Berlin.
Now,
Berlin is a place that comes to mind for me in terms of a loose culture, because it seems like just about anything goes in Berlin, right? You'll see a grandma walking down the street next to a dude with a fishnet shirt on and his nipples pierced and a 2-foot tall pink, green, yellow mohawk, and granny won't even bat an eye, right? Whereas if you walked around in a country that was much more tighter, imagine me in China, Jared, walking around with that,
well, I mean, you walking around as a white person in China was already shocking enough.
That is true.
But I mean, even within, you were trying to think of an example. Even within Germany, Berlin is an anomaly as far as tight and loose cultures go.
Look at Berlin and Munich. Munich is much more tighter of a culture. I
lived in Dusseldorf, and it was very, very quiet. Everyone, I mean, Germany on a whole is kind of like this, but everyone. It was a lot more traditionally cultured, and it would probably be odd to see you with your nipple piercings and spiked hair.
Right?
Do you say you? Is that the example you used?
And it could be anybody. Sure, you could use me as an example any time, Jared. You got my permission.
One thing I did see that Miss or Doctor, I don't know, Gelfand did say about loose cultures was that, not surprisingly, they do end up being more artistic and more creative.
Which makes sense. Exactly. Well, you have that openness. You have that freedom to not be afraid to take risks. Whereas if you're in a tighter country,
tell your real opinion.
Right. Now, one last thing I want to mention, Jared, is that there are a lot of factors. People might be wondering, how does this happen? Tightness and looseness. And it's kind of a multi-level system. You have to look at population density, resource scarcity, a history of territorial conflict, and also disease and environmental threats as well. You also have to look at societal institutions. So what is the political system like? What is the government like? What are the regulations for media? What are the regulations for different things? And also micro-level affordances. So, education, infrastructure, things like this. So these all play a part in this idea of loose and tighter cultures. We're not here to say that one is better than the other, but it is, I think, something to keep in mind when traveling, moving, anything like that. Be aware of these things.
For sure. I mean, you do your research when you move to any country before you go there, and whether it stops you or not, that's not really the point. But the point is to know how to carry yourself without getting in trouble. I mean, it's like you carry yourself, I would imagine, much differently in China than you did Czech Republic. Czech Republic, least to me, feels almost like you're in the U.S. It's just people are quiet.
I mean, I will tell you, there wasn't the big culture shock as much in the Czech Republic as there was in China, just because
more similar to being in Germany,
right.
Which
the culture
was
much looser for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's also of value to live in both, just to see what it's like. And it's interesting now because I've had some friends ask me, after being back in the States, would you go back to China if given the opportunity? And And I think I 100% would. But there's definitely it's a different life living over there than it is here, without a doubt.
Do you feel? You're free now. Did you feel like restricted? Like you're was it like, oh, I wish I could say this, or it's just like it's not that big. Like I can easily live like this.
What I would say is I guess the thing that I felt was the biggest difference was just access to information. You know, here in the States, I don't need a VPN. I can get on all my stuff, no problem. China, there are some workarounds if you want to access things like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
Right.
You know, and
not WeChat.
And right. Now, at the same time, though, I did feel fairly free to teach how I wanted to teach, format the lessons how I wanted. But that's not always the case. You know, it really depends.
And you're never throwing political opinions into your teaching methods.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's never one of your teaching methods. So it's pretty easy to, I guess, to stay safe. But I mean, even like when you, but it's not even just at work. It's even when you go, which you never did, by the way.
Right.
You never really did. But even if you were to go out to get drinks, which once again you never really did. Obviously you did a few times, but in general you didn't do it like you would have in Czech Republic or like you would in the U.S. You still have to sort of think about what you're saying around other people.
Oh, for sure. Other people, you have to be very careful what you post in WeChat groups. I mean,
much like in New York, there might be a little bit of a rat problem. You never know.
Right. Well, and see, that's the other thing though, too, Jared, that makes it tricky is that here I feel like I can more or less say whatever I want. Over there,
oh, trust me, I've heard it. It's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but keep those things in mind, people, when you're looking into places either to travel or to move. And if you're in a very tight culture, try not to deviate too much from the societal norms. But if you're stressed or worried about living in a tight or a loose culture, we got something to calm your nerves today, which is our song in the pod by, I believe it's pronounced Kygo. I think Kygo and Zach Abel. Kygo is like a DJ music producer from Norway, I believe. And the song today is called Freedom.
It is. Chad recommended the song to me, and I'll give you my review of it in 3 words: poppy, fun, forgettable. Shoot, I should have thought of what's a synonym for poppy that starts with a F.
Oh, good question.
I should have made that a proper alliteration. I didn't even think about that.
Pop music is like trendy. It's like a fad.
Flashy,
sure. Fad,
fun.
flashy.
Fad, yes. Fad, fun, forgettable.
Okay.
It was a fun song, and when I first listened to it, I was like, ooh. But this sounded like every sort of like song of the summer, like from like that you never hear about again. Like I feel like I went through like 16 of these between high school and college. Songs that it's like, oh, I've heard this song before, but it's like, no, I haven't. It's just I've heard a song that was like sort of that like electronic pop beat song that was popular for a summer and got like 1 billion views, and it's like, oh yeah, I couldn't tell you anything about it. That's how I feel about that song. But I enjoyed it. And I listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times. The first 2 times I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Popping my shoulders, popping along, trying to get a TikTok dance going. And then after that I was like, all right, I get it. And I've forgotten about it. And I'm listening to it.
I do like the fact that I think the song is kind of apropos to our topic today. Just because I think countries that are a bit on the looser end of the spectrum in theory allowed maybe some more freedoms than other countries. It is poppy for sure. I do like though how they said what they were planning to do for the music video.
Is that because of the Rona? Because they were saying they were planning on shooting a whole video.
Yep.
Or actually, I have it right in front of me. I'll just say it to you. This was going to be a music video shot in the Maldives. which I've heard is
beautiful,
lovely.
by the way. Yeah.
It was going to have blue waters and palm trees swaying in the wind. Zach Abel was going to play guitar by the beach, and I was going to play the piano in the sunset. None of that happened. And then it goes into the song.
Yep. That's life, though, man.
It is yeah. And I do like how they did that. And listen, I'm sure these people are lovely people, but I'm saying that the song seems like it has no real staying power to me.
Maybe if they would have gone to the beach and had palm trees in their video, Jared. Come on now. Come on.
The problem is your video sucks. Why is it so dark in this video? Why is the color so gray toned?
Right.
I need some life. I need some Maldives palm trees.
That's fair.
Do they have palm trees in the Maldives?
I would have just animated the whole music video. You probably had it in the budget to go somewhere. Why not animate it? But anyways, it's a cool song. Check it out. We're shitting on the song too much right now. It is a good song. Check it out.
And our production quality is the only thing we've managed is good audio. Other than that, no production quality here. So who are we to talk?
That's very true. But yeah, so check it out at our YouTube channel, Untranslatable
Maldives
Podcast.
is gorgeous, by the way.
Freedom, Kygo featuring Zach Abel.
You betcha.
It's definitely, I think it will put you in a good mood for sure. Well, Jared.
Yes, I agree.
It's time for my foreign word of the pod today. I'm still learning Russian. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed, people. And my word today is strogi, and strogi means strict, because I think a lot of the countries that tend to be a bit tighter are politically, are religiously, are societally, culturally a bit more strict than some of the more loose cultures out there.
You know more about Russia than I do. Unfortunately, I wish we had David here. He'd be a perfect person to ask this question. Where do you think Russia falls on the looseness, on the tightness scale?
Probably, I would say probably tighter than the U.S., but
looser than China.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Clearly.
Yep.
That makes sense to me.
Exactly. But if our listeners out there are curious about which countries to visit that are on the loose end of the spectrum, definitely check out Ukraine, Estonia, Hungary, Netherlands.
You betcha.
Seems like a lot of them are kind of in the EU located.
The U.S.
If you're looking
not to brag, we're pretty low down there too.
We are. We're not too bad. If you want to experience a tighter culture, check out Pakistan. What are some other? South Korea, Japan, China, Singapore, Malaysia. Check them out.
Norway, if you want to go to Europe.
Yep. And tightness and looseness is kind of based on the societal norms and their openness to change or difference. So keep that in mind. So we hope this has been a useful episode for all of you people out there curious about tight and loose cultures. Let us know what your opinions are on tight and loose cultures at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Check out our Instagram page, Untranslatable Podcast, for pictures of Jared and I experiencing tight or loose cultures. I would say the majority, it's probably loose cultures, but check it out nonetheless. Slide into our DMs on Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. And please do not forget 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Let us know how we can make this podcast better for you. So we thank you all so much for your support. And as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, dziękujemy, muchas gracias, shisha, and do svidania.